The message arrived on a Tuesday morning, and Kyle Harrison read it 3 times before he believed what it said. He sat in his office aboard the Earth diplomatic ship, staring at the screen with a mix of confusion and amusement. "Claire, you need to see this," he called out to his assistant in the next room. Lieutenant Claire Morrison walked in, carrying 2 cups of coffee. She handed one to Kyle and looked over his shoulder at the screen. Her eyes went wide as she read the official communication from the Galactic Council. "They want us to bring a pet?" she asked. Kyle nodded. "Apparently it's a tradition. Every new species that joins the Council has to participate in something called the Ceremony of Companionship. We're supposed to bring an animal from Earth that represents our world and our values." Claire sat down in the chair across from his desk. She pulled out her tablet and started searching through the Council's historical database. After a few minutes, she looked up with a worried expression. "Sir, I've been looking at past ceremonies. Every single species brought peaceful animals. The Xanthari brought creatures made of light that sing beautiful songs. The Korvax brought flying animals with wings that look like silk. The Drillaxi brought small furry things that eat flowers and make chirping sounds." Kyle leaned back in his chair thinking. "So they expect us to bring something gentle and harmless." "It looks that way," Claire said. "The whole ceremony is about showing that species can coexist peacefully. Every animal presented has been a herbivore or something that doesn't hurt other creatures." Kyle was quiet for a long moment. He stood up and walked to the window of his office. Outside, he could see dozens of alien ships floating in space. Each one belonged to a different species, a different world. In 2 weeks, Earth would officially join this massive community of planets. "What are we going to bring?" Claire asked. Kyle turned around, and Claire noticed something in his expression that made her nervous. He had a look in his eyes that she had seen before, usually right before he did something that broke all the rules. "We're going to bring the truth," he said simply. Claire waited for him to explain, but Kyle just smiled and turned back to look at the stars. "Send a message to Earth," he said. "Tell them to prepare transport for Project Companion. We'll need the special containment unit, the full handler team, and all the medical documentation." "Which animal are we requesting, sir?" Claire asked, though she had a feeling she already knew the answer. "We're bringing Max." Claire felt her stomach drop. Max was not a gentle creature. Max was not peaceful. Max was definitely not what the Council was expecting. "Sir, are you sure about this? If we bring Max to the ceremony, it could cause a diplomatic incident. Some of those species might see him as a threat." Kyle nodded. "I'm counting on it." "What do you mean?" Kyle sat back down at his desk and pulled up images of Earth on his screen. He showed Claire pictures of forests, oceans, mountains, and cities. Then he showed her pictures of the animals that lived on their world. Lions hunting on the plains, sharks swimming in the ocean, eagles diving from the sky. Earth isn't a peaceful planet, Claire. It's beautiful, yes. It's full of life. But it's also dangerous. Our world is built on the balance between predator and prey, between danger and safety. If we bring some gentle rabbit or songbird to this ceremony, we'd be lying about what Earth really is. "But the Council wants to see that we value peace," Claire argued. "And we do value peace," Kyle said. "But we also understand something that I think the Council has forgotten. Real peace doesn't come from hiding from danger. It comes from facing danger and choosing not to use it." Claire was starting to understand what Kyle was planning, and it scared her. "You're going to use Max to make a point. I'm going to use Max to tell the truth. He's a predator, yes. He has teeth designed for killing. He has instincts that tell him to hunt. But he's also the most loyal companion any human could ask for. He protects children. He saves lives. He chooses to be gentle even though he could be dangerous. The Council might not see it that way," Claire warned. Kyle smiled. "Then we'll help them understand. The ceremony of companionship is supposed to show what each species values, right? Well, humanity values honest partnership. We don't pretend to be something we're not, and we don't hide the dangerous parts of ourselves. We learn to control them." Claire looked at the image of Max on Kyle's screen. He was a German shepherd, large and powerful with dark fur and intelligent eyes. She had met Max several times during training exercises. He was indeed dangerous when he needed to be, but he was also gentle with children and protective of his human family. "The other delegates are going to panic when they see him," she said. "Probably," Kyle agreed, "but panic can lead to understanding if we handle it right. These species have been part of the Council for thousands of years. They've lived in peace for so long that they've forgotten what it takes to maintain peace. They think peace means being harmless. We need to show them that peace means choosing not to cause harm even when you could. Claire finished her coffee and set the cup down. You know this could get us kicked out of the council before we even officially join. It could, Kyle admitted, but it could also change how they think about everything. These species look at humanity and see primitive warlike creatures. They see our weapons, our history of conflict, our violent nature. They're letting us join the council because they think we'll eventually evolve past all that. And you want to show them we won't? I want to show them we don't need to. Our capacity for violence isn't a flaw to be fixed. It's a tool to be controlled. Max proves that. His ancestors were wolves, apex predators that could kill with ease. But over thousands of years, dogs and humans learned to live together. We didn't make dogs harmless. We made them loyal. We made them family. Claire thought about this for a moment. So Max isn't just a pet. He's a symbol. He's a partner, Kyle corrected. And that's what makes him perfect for this ceremony. Every other species will bring animals they dominate or control. We're bringing an animal that chooses to be with us. Max could run away. He could refuse to obey. He could turn on humans if he wanted to. But he doesn't because we have something the council needs to understand. What's that? Trust. Real trust isn't about being safe. It's about being in potential danger and knowing the other party won't hurt you. When a human brings a dog into their home, they're trusting an animal that has all the tools needed to hurt them, and the dog is trusting the human to care for it, to never abuse that power difference. That's what partnership looks like. Claire stood up and walked to the window. She looked out at all those alien ships and imagined the reaction when Max walked into the council chamber. She imagined the fear, the confusion, maybe even anger. This is going to be interesting, she said quietly. Kyle laughed. That's one word for it. Start making the arrangements. I want Max and his handler Lisa Chen here within the week. We'll need time to acclimate Max to the ship's environment and to brief Lisa on what we're planning. Should I warn the council about what we're bringing? Absolutely not. If we tell them in advance, they'll forbid it. Better to ask forgiveness than permission. Claire shook her head, but she was smiling. You're either brilliant or completely insane. Can I be both? Kyle asked. Over the next week, the human delegation prepared for the ceremony. Max arrived with Lisa Chen, a calm and experienced dog handler who had worked with military and diplomatic animals for 10 years. She was briefed on the plan and agreed immediately. Max is perfect for this, she said, scratching the big dog behind his ears. He's well-trained, but he's still got personality. He's not some robot. He's a real dog with real instincts. That's what makes the bond between us meaningful. Kyle watched as Max explored the ship, sniffing everything with curiosity. The dog showed no fear of the new environment, just interest. When crew members walked by, Max wagged his tail and wanted to greet them. He was friendly but also alert, always aware of his surroundings. How does he do with strangers? Kyle asked. Depends on the stranger, Lisa said. If they're calm and friendly, Max is fine. If they're aggressive or threatening, he'll position himself between me and the threat. He won't attack unless I give the command or unless someone tries to hurt me, but he makes it very clear that he's capable of protecting me. Good. That's exactly what we need to demonstrate. The day before the ceremony, Kyle called a meeting with his entire team. He explained the plan in detail, and while some of them looked worried, most of them understood what he was trying to achieve. We're taking a risk, Kyle admitted. But humanity has always been about taking risks. We climbed down from the trees when it was safer to stay up high. We crossed oceans when we could have stayed on familiar shores. We went to space when we could have remained on Earth. Risk is part of who we are. He looked around the room at his team. Tomorrow we're going to walk into that council chamber with Max, and we're going to show them something they've never seen before. We're going to show them what real partnership looks like. Not dominance, not control, but mutual trust between predator and prey, between danger and safety, between what could harm and what chooses to protect. Claire raised her hand. And if they reject us? Kyle smiled. Then we'll know the council isn't ready for humanity yet. But the council chamber was the most impressive structure Kyle had ever seen. It floated in space between 3 stars, a massive building made of crystal and light that seemed to shift and change as he looked at it. The inside was even more remarkable. The room adapted to each species that entered, changing the air, the gravity, and even the colors to make everyone comfortable. Kyle stood in the waiting area with his team, watching as other delegates arrived with their animals. The Zenthari came first, floating through the air with their cloud singers. The creatures were made of pure energy, glowing with soft purple light and humming a sound that made Kyle think of wind and rain and music all mixed together. Next came the Korvax, carrying delicate cages that held their silk-winged gliders. When released, the creatures flew around the chamber on wings that caught the light and turned it into rainbows. They were beautiful, moving through the air like living art. The Dralaxi brought their flower eaters, small furry animals with big eyes and tiny paws. They chirped and squeaked, hopping from one Dralaxi to another, completely harmless and utterly adorable. Claire stood next to Kyle, watching the procession of gentle creatures. "We are so going to stand out," she whispered. "That's the idea," Kyle whispered back. Behind them, Lisa waited with Max. The dog was calm but alert, sitting at her side and watching everything with intelligent eyes. The containment vessel they had brought was still sealed, its opaque walls hiding Max from view. Warning labels covered the outside in multiple languages. Some of the other delegates had noticed the vessel and were pointing at it, their translators converting their speech into questions. What was inside? Why did it need such a strong container? Why were there so many warnings? Kyle ignored their questions. He would answer them soon enough. Counselor Vexithon entered the chamber and the room fell silent. He was a threen, a species that looked like walking mountains. His body was covered in moss and small plants, and when he moved, the ground itself seemed to shake slightly. His voice was deep and powerful, like distant thunder rolling across a valley. "Welcome, honored delegates and distinguished guests. Today we gather for the ceremony of companionship, a tradition that has bound this council together for 10,000 years. Each species will present a creature from their world, showing us the beauty and diversity of life across the galaxy." The ceremony began. One by one, species presented their animals. Each presentation followed the same pattern. The delegate would speak about their creature, explaining what it ate, how it lived, and what it represented about their world. Every single animal was peaceful, gentle, and completely non-threatening. The audience responded with appreciation, making various sounds of approval that the translators converted into applause. Everything was going exactly as it had for thousands of years. Then it was humanity's turn. Kyle walked to the presentation platform, his footsteps echoing in the suddenly quiet chamber. Behind him, 2 human technicians wheeled in the containment vessel. The warning labels seemed to glow under the chamber's lights. Several delegates shifted nervously in their seats. The Korvax delegate, a being named Shimmer of Dawn, who looked like flowing purple light, moved slightly away from the presentation area. Kyle reached the microphone and looked out at the assembled delegates. 247 different species, thousands of individuals, all watching him with curiosity and growing concern. "Honored counselors, distinguished delegates," Kyle began, his voice clear and steady. "Humanity thanks you for this opportunity to share a creature from our world. Earth is a planet of incredible diversity, with millions of different species. Choosing just one to represent our world was not easy." This was the standard opening. Several delegates nodded, relaxing slightly. Perhaps the human would follow protocol after all. "We considered many options," Kyle continued. "Earth has creatures of great beauty and remarkable gentleness. We have birds that sing, fish that glow with their own light, and mammals as kind as any in the galaxy." More nods of approval. This was going well, but we realized that presenting anything less than the complete truth about Earth would be dishonest. It would be a disservice to this council, and to the spirit of fellowship that binds us together. The mood in the chamber began to shift. Something in Kyle's tone was different from the other presenters. He wasn't following the script. Earth is beautiful, yes, but Earth is also dangerous. Our world was not built on gentle coexistence alone. It was built on balance, on the relationship between predator and prey, between danger and safety. Now the delegates were definitely uncomfortable. Where was this human going with this speech? Humanity did not rise to dominance on Earth because we were the strongest or the fastest. We rose because we understood something fundamental about survival. Kyle paused, letting his words sink in. We understood the value of partnership. He nodded to the technicians, who began to open the containment vessel. The front panel lowered slowly and the chamber fell completely silent. Every eye, Every sensor, every form of perception was focused on that opening door. "What we bring today is not just an animal," Kyle said. "What we bring is 30,000 years of partnership, of evolution through cooperation rather than competition." The door finished opening, and Max stepped out. The reaction was immediate and dramatic. Half the chamber recoiled in visible fear. The Korvax delegate, Shimmer of Dawn, actually fled her seat, moving to the back of the chamber. Other species activated defensive shields or moved behind barriers. Max stood on the platform, a magnificent German shepherd in his prime. He was almost 3 feet tall at the shoulder, with dark fur that gleamed under the lights. But it wasn't his size that caused the panic. It was everything else about him. His eyes scanned the chamber with clear intelligence, tracking movement and assessing threats. His ears moved independently, catching every sound. When he opened his mouth to pant in the warm air, rows of sharp white teeth were clearly visible. He was, without question, a predator. Lisa kept a firm grip on Max's leash. Though everyone could see that the dog outweighed her significantly, she stood calmly, one hand resting on Max's head, waiting for the panic to subside. It took several minutes for the chamber to calm down. Some delegates demanded that Max be removed immediately. Others sat frozen, unable to look away from the dangerous creature on the platform. A few, mostly species that had evolved from predators themselves, leaned forward with interest. Counselor Vexthan's voice boomed across the chamber, and for the first time in living memory, there was genuine anger in it. "Ambassador Harrison, what is the meaning of this? You bring a predator into this sacred chamber. This is an outrage." Kyle had expected this reaction. He remained calm, his hands clasped behind his back, his expression respectful but firm. "Counselor, I ask only for the opportunity to explain. Understanding before judgment. Is that not what diplomacy requires?" The chamber erupted into heated debate. Delegates argued with each other in dozens of languages, all translated simultaneously into a chaos of sound and meaning. Some demanded that Earth be expelled from the council immediately. Others wanted to hear what the human had to say. The argument grew louder and more heated with each passing second. Counselor Vexthan raised one massive hand, and the chamber fell silent again. "Speak, human. But know that this breach of protocol may cost your species its place among the civilized worlds." Kyle nodded his thanks. "What you see before you is a dog. His name is Max. His species, Canis lupus familiaris, has lived alongside humanity for approximately 30,000 years. It is a killer," one delegate shouted. "We can see the weapons in its mouth." "Yes," Kyle agreed, not trying to hide the truth. "Max is descended from wolves, apex predators that hunted in packs. His ancestors could bring down prey much larger than themselves. The instincts for hunting, for tracking, for killing, they're all still there inside him." "Then why would you bring such a creature here?" another delegate demanded. "Are you trying to threaten us?" Kyle shook his head. "I'm trying to teach you something. Or rather, Max is going to teach you something that humanity learned 30,000 years ago." He gestured to Lisa, who gave a subtle hand signal to Max. Immediately the dog sat. His entire posture changed from alert to attentive, his eyes fixed on Lisa with absolute focus. "Max could kill," Kyle said quietly, "but he chooses not to. That choice, that control, that's what makes him remarkable." Shimmer of Dawn had slowly returned to her seat, though she kept her distance from the platform. Her purple light pulsed with curiosity and fear. "But how can you trust such a creature? How do you know it won't turn on you?" Lisa spoke up for the first time, her voice calm and confident. "Because we're family. Max isn't my pet, he's my partner. I trust him with my life because he's proven himself trustworthy thousands of times. And he trusts me to care for him, to feed him, to never abuse the power I have over him." "Power?" Vexthan asked. "What power do you have over this beast?" "Complete power," Lisa said. "I control when he eats. I control where he goes. I could hurt him if I wanted to, though I never would. Max is completely dependent on humans for survival, but he doesn't serve us out of fear or helplessness. He serves us out of love." The word seemed to confuse many of the delegates. Love between different species? How was that possible? Kyle pulled up a holography. The chamber fell silent as Counselor Jakara spoke. Her insectoid form clicked and shifted as she stood, her multiple eyes reflecting the light in strange patterns. When she spoke, her voice carried the weight of experience. What the human has shown us is not just about this creature. It is about the nature of peace itself, she said. The translation made her words sound almost sad. We of the Kryn fought for our place in this galaxy. We know what the human is trying to teach. Vexthon turned his massive form toward her. You support this display of aggression? I support honesty, Zakara replied. How many species in this chamber have weapons on their ships? How many maintain armies? How many have the capability to destroy but choose not to? The silence that followed was uncomfortable. Every species in the room knew the answer. All of them. Every single one. We are not so different from this dog, Zakara continued. We all have the capacity for violence. We all maintain the tools of war while speaking words of peace. The human is simply being honest about it. Kyle seized the moment. That's exactly right. Look at Max, really look at him. The delegates turned their attention back to the dog. Max sat calmly at Lisa's side, his tail wagging slowly. His tongue hung out as he panted, making him look almost silly despite his predatory features. He has teeth designed for killing, Kyle said. He has instincts that tell him to hunt. His sense of smell is 40 times stronger than a human's. He can hear sounds we can't. He's faster than most humans, stronger than most humans. In terms of pure physical capability, he's dangerous. Then why bring him here? Someone shouted, because despite all of that, right now the only thing Max wants is for Lisa to pet his head and tell him he's a good boy. As if to prove the point, Max looked up at Lisa with eyes full of adoration. His tail wagged harder. Lisa smiled and scratched behind his ears, and the dog made a sound of pure happiness. The contrast was startling. This was a predator, yes, but it was also clearly undeniably content and peaceful. How is this possible? Shimmer of Dawn asked, her purple light pulsing with confusion. How can instinct be overridden so completely? It's not overridden, Lisa explained. It's redirected. Max still has hunting instincts, but we've taught him to channel them into games. He loves to chase balls and bring them back. He still has protective instincts, but we've taught him when to use them. He still has pack instincts, but his pack is human. We didn't break his nature. We gave it purpose. Kyle pulled up more images. Dogs working with police to find dangerous criminals. Dogs working with rescue teams to locate earthquake survivors. Dogs working with soldiers in war zones, detecting explosives and saving lives. Every one of these dogs could hurt people, Kyle said. They have the training, the strength, and the instincts. But they choose to help instead. That choice, made freely by a creature capable of violence, is worth more than any amount of forced pacifism. Vexthon was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice had lost some of its anger. You are asking us to reconsider fundamental beliefs, Ambassador Harrison. I'm asking you to reconsider the difference between being harmless and choosing not to cause harm, Kyle replied. There's a difference between a flower which cannot hurt anyone and a warrior who chooses peace despite being capable of war. One is incapable of violence. The other has mastered it. Mastery, Zakara said thoughtfully. Yes, that is the word. The dog has mastered his violent nature. Has humanity done the same? Kyle met her multifaceted gaze. We're trying. We're not perfect. We still fight among ourselves sometimes. We still make mistakes. But we're learning. And dogs have been our teachers. How can an animal teach you? Another delegate asked. By example, Kyle said. Dogs taught us about loyalty, about unconditional love, about protecting those weaker than ourselves, about the importance of play and joy even in difficult times, about forgiveness because dogs don't hold grudges, about living in the moment instead of worrying about the future. He gestured to Max again, but most importantly, they taught us that strength without discipline is worthless. Max is strong. He could easily overpower most humans, but he's been taught that his strength exists to protect, not to dominate. He's been taught that his teeth are for defense, not aggression. He's been taught that being powerful means being responsible for that power. Lisa decided to demonstrate. She gave Max a hand signal, and the dog immediately lay down on the platform. Another signal, and he rolled over on his back, exposing his belly and throat to the room full of strangers. Several delegates gasped. In nature, exposing one's vulnerable areas was a sign of complete submission, of absolute trust. For a predator to do so voluntarily was almost unthinkable. He trusts you that much? Shimmer of Dawn asked in wonder. He trusts all humans that much, Lisa said. Unless you give him reason not to. Max has met thousands of people in his life. He's always friendly until someone proves they're a threat. He gives everyone the benefit of the doubt. That seems like a dangerous way to live, someone observed. It is, Lisa agreed. But it's also a choice. Max chooses to trust knowing he might be hurt, and in return humans choose to be worthy of that trust. That's the partnership. Kyle could see the mood in the chamber beginning to shift. The initial fear was fading, replaced by curiosity and something that might have been understanding. But he needed to push further. "I want to show you something else," he said. He nodded to Lisa, who pulled a small ball from her pocket. "Max, want to play?" she asked in a cheerful voice. The transformation in the dog was immediate and dramatic. The calm, dignified predator vanished. His tail started wagging so hard his whole back end moved with it. His ears perked up. His eyes locked onto the ball with intense focus. Lisa threw the ball across the chamber floor. Max took off like a shot, running faster than most humans could ever hope to move. He grabbed the ball in his jaws, those same jaws that everyone had been afraid of moments ago. Then he ran back to Lisa and dropped the ball at her feet, looking up at her with joy and excitement. "Again?" Lisa asked. Max barked once, a sound of pure enthusiasm. Several delegates jumped at the noise, but it wasn't aggressive. It was excited, playful, happy. Lisa threw the ball again. Max chased it again, brought it back again. The pattern repeated several times, and gradually, some of the delegates began to relax. They were watching a predator play like a child, finding joy in something as simple as fetching a ball. "This is the duality of the dog," Kyle explained. "They're capable of violence, yes. They retain the instincts of their wolf ancestors. But they've also learned joy, playfulness, and the value of games. They can switch from serious protector to playful companion in seconds. They can be both fierce and gentle depending on what the situation requires." He pulled up one final image. It showed a large dog sleeping on a bed with a tiny human baby curled up against its side. The dog's massive head rested near the baby, and one of its paws was gently draped over the child. "This is what trust looks like," Kyle said quietly. "A predator, powerful enough to kill, choosing instead to protect. A human parent trusting that predator with the most precious thing in their world. This is what 30,000 years of partnership has created." The image seemed to affect many of the delegates deeply. The idea of willingly placing their young near a predator was terrifying to most species. But the image showed a reality they couldn't deny. The dog was clearly being gentle, clearly acting as a guardian rather than a threat. Counselor Vexthon spoke again, and his tone was more thoughtful now. "You have given us much to consider, Ambassador Harrison. But I must ask, what happens when the dog's nature overcomes its training? What happens when instinct wins?" "Then we made a mistake in training," Lisa answered. "In all my years working with dogs, I've never seen a properly trained and properly treated dog turn violent without cause. Dogs that attack people are almost always dogs that have been abused, neglected, or deliberately trained to be aggressive. Max has been raised with love, trained with patience, and treated as a valued member of our family. He has no reason to hurt anyone. But the potential exists," Vexton pressed. "The potential always exists," Kyle said. "For dogs, for humans, for every species in this chamber. We all have the potential to cause harm. The question is not whether the potential exists. The question is what we choose to do with it." He looked around the chamber, making eye contact with as many delegates as possible. "You've all maintained weapons while pursuing peace. You've all kept armies while seeking diplomacy. You understand that the capacity for defense is necessary in a dangerous universe. What you seem to have forgotten is that this capacity doesn't make you evil. It makes you realistic." Shakara clicked her approval. "The human is right. We have become so focused on appearing peaceful that we have started to believe our own performance. We pretend that we have evolved beyond violence, but we all maintain the tools of war. Because we know the universe is dangerous," another delegate added reluctantly. "Exactly," Kyle said. "And that's why Max is the perfect representative of Earth. He knows the world can be dangerous, but he doesn't respond to that danger with fear or aggression. He responds with alertness, with readiness, and with the confidence that comes from being part of a strong pack." Lisa called Max back to her side. The dog came immediately, sitting it. Shimmer of Dawn pulled back her tendril of light quickly, startled by Max's friendly response. Her purple glow pulsed rapidly, which the translators interpreted as surprise mixed with curiosity. "He doesn't fear me," she said, her voice filled with wonder. "A predator that doesn't know fear." Lisa smiled. "Oh, Max knows fear. But right now he's curious instead of afraid. He can tell you're not a threat. Dogs are very good at reading body language and emotions. He knows I'm calm, so he stays calm too. But I could hurt him, Shimmer of Dawn said. My species can generate heat and electrical charges. I am dangerous to creatures of flesh. And he could bite you if you were solid enough to bite, Lisa replied. But he won't because you're not acting aggressive. Dogs judge intentions, not just capabilities. Slowly, carefully, Shimmer of Dawn extended her tendril again. This time Max didn't just sniff it. He wagged his tail harder and made a small, happy sound in his throat. His whole body language showed friendliness. I think he likes you, Lisa said. Other delegates were watching this interaction with fascination. The Xanthari were energy beings about as far from Earth biology as possible. Yet somehow this Earth predator was communicating peacefully with her, showing no aggression despite the obvious differences between them. May I try? Asked another delegate, one of the Dralaxi whose small furry creatures had been presented earlier. His voice was nervous but curious. Lisa nodded. Come on over. Move slowly and let him see your hands. The Dralaxi approached, his small stature making him shorter than Max. The dog looked down at him with interest. When the delegate extended a furry hand, Max sniffed it thoroughly, then licked it once with his tongue. The Dralaxi jumped back in surprise but then laughed. It's wet and warm. Is this how Earth creatures show friendship? Sometimes, Lisa said. Dogs lick to show affection, to gather information through taste and smell, or sometimes just because they think you might have food. Kyle watched as more delegates began to approach. The fear was fading, replaced by genuine curiosity. They asked questions about Max's diet, his lifespan, his training. They marveled at how responsive he was to Lisa's commands. They were amazed by his obvious intelligence and emotional awareness. But Kyle knew that curiosity wasn't enough. He needed them to understand the deeper meaning. Counselors, he called out, drawing everyone's attention back to him. I want to ask you a serious question. How many peaceful species has the Council lost to outside threats? The chamber grew quiet again. It was a touchy subject. Vex then rumbled unhappily. What is your point, Ambassador? My point is that peace without the ability to defend yourself isn't peace. It's just waiting to become a victim. Kyle pulled up data on his display. 37 species have joined this council in the past 1,000 years. Species that embraced absolute pacifism, that rejected all forms of violence, that believed in pure, peaceful coexistence. He highlighted names on the display: the Malori, the Centauri, the peaceful ones of Theta 6 all gone, all destroyed by hostile forces that found them easy targets. We mourned their loss, Jakara said quietly, but we could not save them. They refused to defend themselves even when attack was imminent. Because you taught them that violence was never the answer, Kyle said, not unkindly. You taught them that evolved species don't fight. That civilization means leaving behind all aggressive tendencies, and when they faced an enemy who didn't share those values, they had no defense. Vexthon shifted his massive weight. Are you suggesting we should become warriors? I'm suggesting you remember that you already are warriors. You just don't like to admit it. Kyle gestured to the ships visible through the chamber's transparent walls. Every ship out there has weapons. Every species here maintains some form of military. You haven't abandoned violence. You've just become very good at pretending you have. We maintain defenses only as a last resort, another counselor argued. And that's smart, Kyle agreed. But somewhere along the way, you started believing that having those defenses was shameful. You started thinking that the goal was to evolve beyond needing them at all. That's where you went wrong. He pointed to Max, who was now lying down calmly while several delegates petted his fur, marveling at the texture. Max could kill. But the fact that he could kill isn't a flaw. It's not something to be ashamed of or evolved away from. It's a tool, and like any tool, it depends on how you use it. Lisa added, We don't train dogs to be harmless. We train them to have self-control. There's a huge difference. A harmless creature can't protect anyone. But a powerful creature with perfect self-control, that's valuable. One of the delegates petting Max spoke up. It was a Korvax named Wind Through Leaves, whose species had initially fled at the sight of the dog. I must admit I was terrified when I first saw this creature. But now touching him, seeing his gentle behavior, I understand what the humans are showing us. And what is that? Vexthon asked. That fear and trust can coexist. I am still aware that this animal could hurt me, but I trust that he won't. And that trust makes me braver than I was before. Kyle smiled. That's it exactly. Trust doesn't mean believing there's no danger. It means believing that the danger is under control, that your partner values you too much to hurt you. Jakara spoke again. The human has revealed an uncomfortable truth. We have built this council on a foundation of denial. We deny our own capacity for violence while maintaining weapons. We deny our predatory origins while keeping defensive forces. We have confused peace with weakness. Peace is not weakness, Vexthon protested. No, it's not, Kyle agreed. But peace is also not the absence of strength. Real peace is choosing not to use your strength to harm others. It's choosing cooperation over conquest, even when conquest would be easier. He walked over to Max and knelt down beside the dog. Max immediately turned his attention to Kyle, tail wagging. Kyle scratched behind the dog's ears and Max leaned into the touch with obvious pleasure. For 30,000 years, humans and dogs have been teaching each other this lesson. Dogs taught us that loyalty is more valuable than dominance, that protecting your family is more important than asserting your power, that joy and playfulness have a place even in a dangerous world. And what did humans teach the dogs? Asked Shimmer of Dawn. That they didn't have to hunt to survive. That there was safety in cooperation. That their strength could be used for protection instead of predation. Kyle stood up. We made each other better. Not by denying what we were, but by channeling what we were towards something more constructive. Lisa called Max back to her side and made him sit. Then she did something that made several delegates gasp. She removed his leash completely. Max was now free. Unleashed. A predator with no restraints in a room full of potential prey. The dog sat calmly at Lisa's side, looking up at her with love and trust. This is what partnership looks like, Lisa said. I don't need a leash to control Max. He stays with me because he wants to, because he's chosen me as his family. The leash is just a formality, a safety measure for everyone else's peace of mind. But Max doesn't obey because he's forced to. He obeys because we have a relationship built on mutual respect and love. What if he decided to run? Someone asked nervously. Then he would run, Lisa said simply. But he won't. Watch. She walked to the other side of the platform, putting distance between herself and Max. The dog watched her go but didn't move. Then Lisa turned her back completely, facing away from him. Max stayed sitting, waiting patiently. Lisa walked even farther away until she was a good 30 feet from the dog. Then she called out, Max, come. The dog immediately ran to her, stopping precisely at her feet and sitting again. His tail wagged the entire time. The demonstration was powerful. Max could have run anywhere in the chamber. He could have approached the other delegates. He could have done anything. But he chose to return to Lisa, to obey her command, to maintain the partnership between them. This is what we're offering the council, Kyle said. Not subservience, not dominance, but partnership. We're not asking you to trust that humans are harmless because we're not. We're asking you to trust that we understand the value of peace, the importance of cooperation, and the responsibility that comes with power. Vexthon was quiet for a very long time. The entire chamber waited for his response. Finally, the massive Threen spoke. You have challenged every assumption we hold dear, Ambassador Harrison. You have forced us to confront uncomfortable truths about ourselves. This is not what I expected from today's ceremony. I know, Kyle said, and I apologize for the disruption. But I felt it was important to start this partnership with honesty rather than comfortable lies. Honesty, Vexthon repeated. Yes, that is what you have given us. Uncomfortable, challenging honesty. He looked at Max, who was now back at Lisa's side, calm and content. This creature represents everything we have tried to evolve beyond. Yet I cannot deny the bond I see between it and its human. I cannot deny the choice it makes to be gentle despite its capacity for violence, civilized despite our violent capabilities. The dog simply makes that choice more visible, more obvious. It doesn't hide what it is, no, Kyle agreed. Dogs are honest about their nature. They don't pretend to be something they're not, and in return we give them honesty too. We don't pretend that we're their equals in Strangay. The chamber remained quiet as Kyle spoke. Every delegate, every counselor, every observer gave him their full attention. This was the moment that would determine humanity's future among the stars. Earth is not a gentle world, Kyle said. It's beautiful, yes, full of life and wonder, but it's also harsh and unforgiving. Natural disasters kill thousands. Predators hunt prey. Disease spreads. Resources run scarce. Our world taught us that survival requires strength, intelligence, and cooperation. He gestured broadly, taking in the whole chamber. I've studied your histories. Many of your species evolved on gentler worlds than ours. Worlds with abundant food, mild climates, few natural predators. You developed intelligence for cooperation and creation, not for survival against constant threats. Several delegates nodded. This was true for many of them. We don't judge you for that, Kyle continued. Different worlds create different species with different values. But you need to understand that Earth shaped humanity differently. We learned early that the universe doesn't care about fairness or justice. It simply exists, indifferent to suffering. Bexton rumbled thoughtfully. This is a dark philosophy, Ambassador. It's a realistic one, Kyle corrected. But here's the important part. Despite learning these harsh lessons, despite knowing that the universe can be cruel, humanity didn't become cruel ourselves. We didn't let the harshness of existence turn us into monsters. He pointed to Max, who was now lying down while a group of delegates carefully examined his paws, fascinated by the structure of his claws. We partnered with predators and taught them love. We took creatures designed for killing and gave them purpose in protection. We looked at danger and decided to befriend it rather than destroy it or run from it. Lisa spoke up, adding her perspective. People ask me sometimes if I'm afraid of Max. The answer is no. But not because he's harmless. I'm not afraid because I've earned his loyalty and he's earned my trust. That trust is built on thousands of small interactions, years of working together, and mutual respect for each other's capabilities. But you are still his superior, one delegate argued. You control his food, his freedom, his entire life. That is not partnership, that is ownership, is it? Lisa asked. Max could run away anytime we're outside. He could refuse to come when called. He could bite the hand that feeds him. He has free will, just like any intelligent being. He chooses to stay with me. She called Max over and made him sit. Then she looked at the delegates. Watch this. She took a treat from her pocket and placed it on the ground in front of Max. The dog stared at it with obvious desire, his nose twitching, but he didn't move. Max knows that treat is there. He wants it very badly, but he's waiting for permission, not because he fears punishment, but because that's our agreement. I provide for him and he trusts me to decide when it's appropriate to eat. She waited a full minute, letting the tension build. Max never took his eyes off the treat, but he also never moved toward it. Finally, Lisa said, Okay, Max, take it. The dog immediately grabbed the treat and ate it, his tail wagging with happiness. That's self-control, Lisa explained. That's a predator choosing to follow rules even when every instinct tells him to just take what he wants. And he makes that choice because he values our relationship more than immediate gratification. Shakara clicked her approval. This is the lesson the humans are teaching. Civilization is not about removing the capacity for taking what you want. It's about choosing not to take it even when you could. Exactly, Kyle said. Look around this chamber. How many of you could take things by force from weaker species? How many of you could conquer planets that couldn't defend themselves? How many of you could abandon the Council's rules and face no immediate consequences? The uncomfortable silence told him that many of them had considered these questions before. You all have power, Kyle said. Military power, economic power, technological power. You could abuse that power if you wanted to, but you don't. You follow the rules, you cooperate with others, you choose peace over conquest. Not because you're weak, but because you're civilized. He walked back to Max and knelt beside him again. This dog has taught humanity more about civilization than any philosophy book ever could. He's shown us that true strength lies in restraint. That real power is choosing not to use your advantages. That the mark of an advanced being is not what you're capable of, but what you choose to do with those capabilities. Vexthon shifted his massive weight, his moss-covered surface rippling with thought. You have given us much to consider, Ambassador. But I must ask, what happens when this philosophy fails? What happens when someone takes advantage of your restraint? Then we defend ourselves, Kyle said simply. Choosing peace doesn't mean accepting victimization. Max is gentle, but if someone attacked Lisa, he would fight back. We're peaceful, but we're not pacifists. There's a difference. Explain this difference, Vexton requested. A pacifist refuses to fight under any circumstances. They believe all violence is wrong, always. But someone who chooses peace understands that sometimes, when all other options are exhausted, defense becomes necessary. Kyle stood up. Max doesn't start fights, but he would finish one if he had to. Lisa nodded. I've trained Max in protection work. He knows how to stop a threat without killing. He knows how to use minimum necessary force. But most importantly, he knows the difference between a real threat and just someone being annoying. That judgment, that ability to assess situations and respond appropriately, that's what makes him valuable. Can such judgment be taught to an entire species? Asked Shimmer of Dawn. It can be learned, Kyle said. Humanity is still learning it. We make mistakes. We sometimes respond too aggressively, or not aggressively enough. We're not perfect, but we're trying, and we're getting better. Having dogs as companions has helped us learn faster. He pulled up one more image on the display. It showed human children playing with a group of dogs in a park. The dogs were running, jumping, playing with the children with obvious joy. But he zoomed in on one detail. A small child had fallen down, and a large dog was standing over the child, not aggressively but protectively, while other children ran to help. Dogs protect human children instinctively. They see our young as part of their pack. This dog didn't need to be told to guard that fallen child. He just did it. Because protecting the vulnerable is part of who he is now after thousands of generations of living with humans. And humans protect dogs in return? Asked Wind Through Leaves. Absolutely, Lisa said. People have died protecting their dogs, have run into burning buildings to save them, have spent their life savings on medical care for them. The bond goes both ways. Kyle could see that the council was beginning to understand. The fear had completely faded now. Delegates were discussing the implications of what they'd witnessed, debating the philosophy behind it, reconsidering their own assumptions about peace and power. Finally, Vexthon called for order. We must vote on whether to accept this presentation and what it represents. The question before us is not just about admitting humanity to the council. It's about whether we accept their philosophy that controlled danger is preferable to enforced harmlessness. The chamber buzzed with conversation as delegates discussed the issue. Kyle noticed that many of the predator species were strongly in favor, while many herbivore species were still uncertain. The debate lasted for over an hour. Finally, Vexthon called for the vote. The results appeared on displays throughout the chamber. Kyle held his breath as the numbers climbed. It was going to be close. When the final tally appeared, Vexthon's voice rang out across the chamber. By a vote of 63% in favor, the council accepts humanity's presentation. We acknowledge that strength in service of peace is a valid path to civilization. Kyle felt relief wash over him. They'd done it. It hadn't been easy, and they'd scared half the council in the process, but they'd made their point. But Vexthon wasn't finished. Furthermore, we recognize that the council's philosophy may have been too narrow. We have perhaps been too quick to dismiss those who retain their warrior natures. There is wisdom in the human approach, in partnering with danger rather than fleeing from it. This was more than Kyle had hoped for. The council wasn't just accepting humanity. They were reconsidering their entire worldview. Shakara spoke up. I propose we establish a new category of council membership. Species who choose peace while maintaining strength. Species who acknowledge their capacity for violence while committing to restraint. The human approach formalized and recognized. The vote on this proposal passed with 70% approval. The council was changing, evolving, admitting that perhaps they'd been too rigid in their thinking. As the formal ceremony concluded, something remarkable happened. Delegates began approaching Kyle asking questions about dogs. Could their species acquire some? Could they learn from human training methods? Could humanity share their experience in partnering with predators? Within an hour, 5 different species had requested detailed information about dog breeding, training, and care. They wanted to learn what humanity had learned over 30,000 years of partnership. Later, back in their quarters, Kyle and Claire sat watching the news coverage of the ceremony. Every galactic news service was talking about it. Some were critical, Kai.